You've spelunked into the Mat Cave. Hello, everybody. Welcome into another episode of the Mat Cave. Not the usual energy you got from me today. I'll get into it later, but yeah, today I'm going to talk about basketball, obviously, because we've got a lot of basketball around. It is March Madness. And then I'll talk about Real Salt Lake and end the episode with talk about the Mammoth. Yeah. And the outlook is not going to be sunshine and roses. So if you're going to get offended about me being critical about the Mammoth, turn off the episode. You're not going to want to hear what I have to say. All right. So, as always, thank you all so much for being here. Like, comment, subscribe, wherever it is, however you listen. Helps me out a ton. Also, share this with one person that you think might enjoy the program. Maybe it's a Utah Mammoth hater. I mean, today, it's not going to be kind. There's been a theme over the last 5 games really, that I've seen with this team, and it's a theme, and it's no longer something that they can break. It's a habit now, and so that will be to close out the episode. But again, thank you all so much for being here. Let's jump right into things. So, college basketball, the Utah Utes, well, the season ended pretty much the way everyone expected it to. They gave a spirited showing against Cincinnati. They lost overall 73-66. They fought back really hard. They actually outscored the Bearcats in the second half, 46-44. But their first half cold streak, they couldn't overcome it. Terrence Brown finished with 22 points and 6 assists, so only 1 turnover. So, I mean, rough year for Utah. Basically what everybody was expecting. Alex Jensen came into a program where the cupboard was less than empty. Like, the hinges were off the doors, the shelves were crooked, there's dust and moths in there. So, I mean, this is the first step. Now we'll get to see his recruiting as well as how he does on the transfer portal trail. It'll be an interesting offseason, definitely, to watch for the Utes. But they finished the season on, what is that? Let's see, 6-game losing streak. Unfortunate, but nobody really expected much of anything from this team. So if you go back, though, to their non-conference, they did perform pretty well. They did lose to Cal, they lost to Grand Canyon, and they lost to Mississippi State and Washington, sure. But they did beat Ole Miss, they beat Weber State, they beat San Jose State, so they did beat some teams. So there is a faint glimmer of hope that Alex Jensen can do this. It's just not going to be the quick turnaround that maybe some people were expecting because of how it mirrors the Kevin Young situation. And what I mean by situation is their experience coaching in the NBA and their path there and all of that. So that's what I mean by mirrors. I don't mean mirrors exactly. So Utah ends the season 10-22. Last in the Big 12. The good news, the season's over. And the better news is there's only one way to go from here, and it's up. And Utah's not going to be searching for their head coach. Kansas State, Baylor might be looking for a new head coach after this season. Arizona State is. Cincinnati is. So there's a lot of teams in the Big 12 that have fired their head coaches who will be behind the 8 ball when it comes to transfer portal and recruiting trail. So Utah is ahead of those programs. Now let's move on to Utah State. Congratulations to Utah State. They did the double. They won the regular season championship for the Mountain West, and they beat San Diego State in the final by 11. So Utah State, they did it. They're going into the big dance. I would put them as high as a 6th seed. I really would. They deserve it. They've been ranked. They've beaten pretty much everyone that they're supposed to beat. They had a couple of slip-ups. Mason Falslev won Player of the Year, which well-earned. Personally, I enjoy watching MJ Collins a little bit more than Mason Falslev, but Mason Falslev just makes shots, is what he does. And he's kind of he's the guy that's everywhere. So congratulations to him for winning Player of the Year in the Mountain West Conference. So I guess they did the triple, right? So, I mean, Utah State, fabulous year. They were 32nd in the country in assists per game, so the ball was always moving. They're even top 50 in points per game, which is really impressive to do for a team that isn't Connecticut or Duke or North Carolina or anything like that. That's really impressive. So, very good season from the Aggies. I really hope they get rewarded in March Madness with that 6 seed, maybe even a 5 seed. Just because of how crazy everything's been with the tournaments and then with a lot of teams in the top 25 slipping, Utah State included, during the season. I think they deserve that. They really do. But we'll see. We'll see what the selection committee does. I am recording this late Saturday night, so I am not waiting for Selection Sunday to wrap up for the bracket. But yes, I will be a part of the Radio Ronin ESPN March Madness group that they have going. I hope to see you guys in there as well. And then, so Utah State, good stuff. Really good stuff this season. BYU closed out the season incredibly well. All 3 of them that were able to play. AJ Dybantsa was as advertised. He broke Kevin Durant's Big 12 tournament scoring record in both single game as well as overall. He has established himself as probably the pick to be number 1 overall, although Cam Boozer does have a big say in that. But the reason I would take Dybantsa over Boozer is, yes, I'm a homer, but when you look at the teams and the rosters that are around these guys, Cam Boozer's team was able to stay healthy, and it was deeper just because it's Duke. BYU wasn't able to stay healthy this year. AJ Dybantsa and Rob Wright were tasked with carrying the walking wounded, and AJ Dybantsa himself was playing hurt. So that is what we're looking at here as far as who I think should be number 1 overall. I don't think Darren Peterson should be considered number 1 overall just because of the way he handled the season. Yeah, he was injured. That's true. I'm not going to question a player when he says he's injured. I'm not. But holding himself out of games, feeling under the weather, I mean, man, you're toying with your future when you do that. And if I were a front office or if I were a head coach, I wouldn't want that kind of mindset on my team. It's just me, though. AJ Dybantsa showed up every day, every night, played his guts out, and I think he deserves to be a top 2 pick in the upcoming NBA draft. And yes, he is going pro, Kruger fans. He is going pro. I know I heard what he said, but he had a smile on his face when he said it. He's not coming back. You don't turn down that payday. So it was a good end to a very tough season. I hope BYU learns their lesson about non-conference scheduling. And that's not me saying they should just, do cream puffs all over the place and play nobodies. Just not as many teams. Just not as many is what I'm asking for here. So instead of playing UConn, Wisconsin, Villanova, Miami, Clemson, all in the preseason, maybe do a couple. Just a couple. Mirror what the other conferences are doing. You don't really need to prove yourself like that. But I get it. The university brought in a lot of money with AJ Dybantsa. They spent a lot of money to get AJ Dybantsa, but they also brought in a lot of money by doing that Dybantsa tour, I guess you could say, over on the East Coast to start the season. But it took its toll. Dawson Banker was the first to fall, and I said it weeks ago, with him missing time, that screwed everything up for Kevin Young's rotation because he was counted on to be the guy in the second unit that came out when the first unit needed to get a rest. So that's what we're looking at here. BYU will make the tournament 23-11. They were ranked most of the season. They upset a top 10 team at home. They beat Kansas State and West Virginia both convincingly, and they hung tight with Houston. That's pretty impressive to say. So the season overall, disappointing. It wasn't a failure. Not by any stretch of the imagination was it a failure, because the team was noticed, the team was recognized, it has gotten national attention, and more than anything else, that was the goal, was to bring legitimacy to a BYU basketball program that never really had it. Last season, they were a cute story. They were an efficient offensive team that could not play defense, and they made a run in the tournament. That's That's what it was. It was a cute story. They were a very high-powered, prolific offense with the ball constantly moving. And then they ran into a team that couldn't miss a three. And now, this season, it was the AJ Dybantsa show because of all the injuries that happened. But before the injuries started to really strike, before the injury bug really bit BYU, there were worrying signs. If you go back and listen to my first few shows during the season, I called out a lot of problems that the team never really got over. Rob Wright and AJ Dybantsa are black holes when it comes to the ball. It will stop. And the other four guys are just going to have to watch. That's what happened. BYU is still a top 30 team in the country when it comes to points per game, 83.9, basically 84. Top 65 in rebounds per game. They were 63rd at 38.3. But when you get to the assists per game, that's where everything kind of falls apart. 13.5 assists per game. That's it. You'll find more assists on a junior Jazz court than you will watching a BYU game. 13.5. That is tied for 264th in the country. I don't know about you guys, but I would be hard-pressed to name 263 universities that play men's basketball. I can do the Power Four conferences. I could probably do the Big East, the Mountain West, the WAC, maybe. Other than that, I would fall off pretty hard. So that's not good. And that was a problem I pointed out early on in the season. It was one that was never fixed. It was their downfall in a couple of games, like their game against Oklahoma State. That was their downfall. So that and free throw shooting. I mean, yeah. So this season was not a failure. Was it a success? No. Was it a failure? No. It was a season. A season that showed how much injuries can affect basketball in particular. Injuries affect every sport. It's just a reality you have to live with. But basketball in particular, and college basketball particularly, you see it. And you saw it with BYU this year. Big props to AJ Dybantsa, Rob Wright, Kebakita, all of those guys that were able to battle through injuries or, just play out the season. I don't know what Rob Wright's future holds. Do I want him back at BYU? Absolutely. He's a gamer. Do I think he will come back? I don't know. It depends on the tournament he has. If he has a big NCAA tournament, he's going pro. And I wouldn't blame him at all. So we'll have to see there. Obviously, Richie Saunders' BYU career is done. Horrible way for it to go out. Same thing with Dawson Baker. Maybe Dawson Baker can get a flyer from the NCAA because his injury happened so early in the season to grant him an extra season of eligibility, but I doubt it. So this team, that's it for pretty much all of them. Kebakita's a senior. He's gone. So next season is going to be interesting with all of these young guys that were recruited to this team. I'll be interested to see how many of them actually stay. Will Xavier Staten stay? I don't know. He was injured pretty early in the year. Couldn't ever really get on the court because of that. Who knows? So this offseason will be interesting for pretty much every college basketball program in the state of Utah because, I don't know if you noticed, but Utah Valley University had to pay a $1 million exit fee to the WAC. They will be joining the Mountain West Conference basketball only, I believe. You guys will probably let me know if I'm right or wrong about that, but they will be moving over to the Mountain West Conference, and they had to pay an exit fee, which also meant they were not eligible to play in the WAC tournament. So their season's done as well. So a lot of moving pieces, a lot of stuff to be figured out in the offseason. College sports is a maelstrom right now, and there's nobody that can fix it. Nobody that can fix it. There is no institution right now. It's the Wild West. Personally, I like it. Power to the players. That was the theme when I worked at GameStop, but I prefer power to the players as opposed to power to the head coaches or the administrations. So it's the fruits of their labors. So moving on to Utah. I mean, for BYU, I think their seed is probably going to be in the 8 to 10 region, if I had to guess. They are on the bubble, but they're more protected than any other team just because of the fact of AJ Dybantsa. The NCAA wants to see him in the tournament. They don't want a repeat of Rutgers of last year. So there you go. Now moving on to the Utah Jazz. They have a very important tank-off game against the Sacramento Kings on Sunday night. They've lost key games, but they've also won a couple that they probably shouldn't have won. They beat the Wizards 122-112, and they beat the Warriors 119-116. Immediately after the game, head coach Steve Kerr called for the NBA to shorten the season. Steve, you played 82 games as well, bud. I don't hear you complaining about the rings you won. So maybe shush a little bit on that front. Everything else Steve Kerr says, I'm pretty much on board with. But that, shush. Just because your team's old does not mean that the NBA needs to shorten the season. All right? All right. Right now, looking at the full standings, Utah is 20-47 on the season. And overall, they are still pretty much in the same place as they were last week. So the worst team in the league right now is the Indiana Pacers. That was always going to happen. They lost Miles Turner, their center, to free agency. And they also had Tyrese Halliburton out for the year due to an Achilles injury he suffered during the NBA Finals. When you lose your two best players in your small market team, yeah, you're going to struggle. So Indiana is not actively tanking. They just don't have anybody. The Washington Wizards have been tanking for years, and it's never really helped. They got John Wall once for their last concerted effort to tank, and that didn't really work. So now they're trying it again. There are a lot of interesting pieces with Washington, with Trae Young, Anthony Davis, a couple of the lottery picks that they have. They could be a sneaky good team next season if everybody remains healthy. We'll see, but right now they are actively tanking as well. And an interesting note about records here is Washington's record against teams that have a 500 record or above, they are 4-40. Utah's 9-30. They have the best record against teams above 500 of anybody actively tanking. You tell me who's tanking. Who should have gotten fined $500,000? You tell me. Shouldn't have been the Jazz. Look at the Wizards. Even the Pacers are 7-35. But I digress. So Indiana is currently in the catbird seat, along with Washington and Sacramento. So those three teams will share equal odds going into the draft lottery, which all of us here in Utah know is complete BS. So it doesn't matter if you have that. You're going to get kicked out. And then after that comes Brooklyn at 17-50. And then you will have Utah right there at 20-47. So the last 15 games of the season, Utah would have to lose every single one, and Washington or Sacramento or Indiana would have to win 6. That's not going to happen. So Utah will probably get to keep their pick unless, Adam Silver decides to just say screw Utah like he has in the past and bow to ESPN and Sam Presti of Oklahoma City and say, yeah, we're just going to give that pick to the Thunder. I mean, if that happens, and I'm Ryan Smith, I might sue the NBA for collusion. I would. For unfair practice, whatever you want to call it. Monopoly, even. I mean, there's a lot of ways you can go. One more interesting record note I want to bring to your guys' attention here is overtime. Utah has the second most, or they're tied for the second most overtime wins in the Western Conference with Denver. Oklahoma City has 4. That's it. That's the only team better than the Jazz in the Western Conference. In fact, if you want to zoom out and look at the entire league, they're tied for second in the league in overtime wins with 3. The only two teams that have more wins than Utah are Philadelphia and Oklahoma City. So look at these records, Bobby Marks, before you make an integrity play. Look at the records here. Do a little bit of a deeper dive before you shoot your mouth off and look like a complete and utter moron. And just talk to me a little bit here. Look at the Washington Wizards. Record above teams 500, or record against teams 500 and above. 4-40 are the Washington Wizards. Did they get fined? Nah. How about the New Orleans Pelicans? 6-34. No, they didn't get fined either. So, any way you slice it, it's just the NBA, ESPN, and Sam Presti, who wants that draft pick, just saying, we're just going to make Utah the poster boys of this. When Philadelphia was doing it for near on a decade, and they even had a name for it, and the NBA was marketing that plan. The process. Who did it net them? It netted them nobody. It got them Joel Embiid. That is the lone guy they got from a near decade of tanking. That's it. Every other player they got flamed out. So I'm going to keep revisiting this because I'm the only voice that is really saying this right now, and I'm going to keep saying it. There is a vendetta against the Utah market when it comes to ESPN and the NBA. And it's true. And since I'm not paid by either, I'm not paid by anybody, I can say it. And I'm going to continue saying it. There is a vendetta against this market when it comes to the NBA. All right, let's move it over to Real Salt Lake now. They have won 3 straight. That is not... I mean, you don't need to rewind and see if you heard that right. Real Salt Lake has won 3 games in a row. In fact, Real Salt Lake has won 3 games in a row without their best player. Holy moly. The young kids are doing it. In this game, they forced an own goal against Austin FC. And then in the 88th minute, Stein Spearings broke the hearts of Austin FC and scored a goal. Holy moly. I mean, Diego Luna didn't start the game. He was subbed in. But, wow. Are you kidding? Real Salt Lake is sitting at 9 points. That is so wild. Real Salt Lake has played 4 games, and they've won 3. Now, I'm not going to be changing my outlook on the season. I'm not. It's going to be a rough year for the Claret and Cobalt. But these young kids, if they just keep playing without fear and they just keep charging on ahead, who knows what could happen this year? I mean, there's something to be said about youth, about, inexperience, because you don't know what it feels like to fail. So just keep going. Just don't even worry about it. You make a mistake, oops, keep playing hard. That's really what I want from this team, and that's what they keep giving us night after night. Now, set pieces are still a big problem for Real Salt Lake. A lot of scary moments in this game. But if you just look at the statistics or the summary or anything else, Real Salt Lake almost dominated this game. In fact, they did. All right, I'm just going to say they dominated this game. 8 shots on goal to 3, 23 shot attempts to 10. They only had 1 yellow card to 4 for Austin, 7 corner kicks to 4, and Rafael Cabral, the goalkeeper for Real Salt Lake, only had to make 2 saves to the 7 that Austin FC goalkeeper Brad Stuver had to make. Wow. That's a good game. So Real Salt Lake is up near the top of the Western Conference, and it's wild. It's just wild to me how Pablo Mastroeni is able, and Jason Christ really, are able to pull this out of such a young group, and I hope they can just keep it going because it's fun. Look up the highlights on YouTube. It's fun. All right, Utah Mammoth fans, plug your ears because here it comes. Utah, the Mammoth, are on a 4-game losing streak now. 4-game losing streak. They've lost to Chicago twice. The worst team in the Central Division. Twice. They got blown out by Minnesota 5-0. And then they lose on home ice in a game where they led 2-0, 4-3 to the Pittsburgh Penguins without their 2 best players, Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin. The late season collapse that I was afraid was going to happen is happening right now. And the tendencies that the players are playing with, the tendencies that Andre Turgeon is putting out onto the ice, this team doesn't deserve to make the playoffs. They don't. Now, the officiating the past 3 games in particular, well, 3 of the 4, the 2 games against Chicago and Pittsburgh, no officiating could have helped Utah at all against Minnesota, but in the other games, it was putrid, and it affected Utah. You cannot allow officiating to affect you. You just can't. You learn how the officials are calling a game, and then you adjust your play accordingly. Utah did not do that against Pittsburgh. They took a ton of stupid penalties. Alexander Kerfoot, I have been less than impressed with him since he came back from injury. They keep gassing him up on the broadcast. I don't know why. I do not know why. He takes stupid penalties. He turns the puck over in the D zone almost as often as Ian Cole. Ian Cole is showing that he does not deserve to be re-signed. He does not fit the offense. He does not fit the team. He's too old. He's too slow. There, I said it. Karel Vejmelka is falling apart. He is disintegrating before our eyes. 2 of these goals against Pittsburgh, he should have saved. He should have saved. One of them was because there was miscommunication or a lack of trust between him and Ian Cole on that power play, basically. Oh, the power play. Matt, I'm glad you brought that up. Thank you, Matt. It still sucks. It's terrible. One of the worst in the league. I cannot believe that coach has survived as long as he has. Does he have some dirt on Bill Armstrong? That's the only thing I can think of as to why this guy is not unemployed like yours truly. Mackenzie Weegar, fantastic pickup. He is a very good player, and he fits this team to a T. That was great. Barrett Hayton, get out of town, bro. He's terrible. Stupid penalty after stupid penalty. Turns the puck over. Runs into the opposing goalkeeper to negate goals. It is every night with him. He should have been dealt at the trade deadline. I don't care if it was for a bag of chips. Get him out. Logan Cooley. I love Logan Cooley. I love his game. But he's got to figure out that opposing players are not just going to let him skate by them. Tonight, against the Penguins, he had almost the identical injury that knocked him out for half the season. He got back out there. He was not the same guy. So, he needs to figure that out. Other than that, the rest of the team has gone cold. Nick Schmaltz, after signing his deal, I thought he was going to explode like Logan Cooley did. He's gone nowhere. He's the disappearing man. Clayton Keller taking stupid penalties. Not really playing like a captain. And then, with like 6 seconds left on the clock, he passes the puck instead of shooting it. So you got to fix that. Dylan Guenther is seemingly the only guy who knows how to score a goal. That's not sustainable. You're not going to make the playoffs like that, guys. So, if we look at the standings, they're not great for Utah. They're not great. Utah still holds the top wildcard spot. Yes, this is true. But that's just because the rest of the Western Conference sucks outside of the top 3 in the Central. San Jose is currently second with 70 points. The Kings are at 69, the Kraken at 67, and the Predators at 67. The Kraken, I believe, are winning their game, so they'll go up to 69 points. So Utah is barely hanging on. And they're losing games. They are snatching defeat from the jaws of victory in a way that is astounding to me. And if we look at their remaining schedule here, it doesn't get any easier. They are on the road to Dallas, and then they have a back-to-back against Vegas and Anaheim. The collapse is happening, and I don't see anybody that is going to be able to stop it. Andre Turgeon sure can't. In fact, he was happy after the game against the Blackhawks. He was happy. So this team does not deserve the playoffs. If you can't tell, not in a great mood. My life sucks, and now the Mammoth lost. So there we are. I'm still unemployed. The Mammoth should be unemployed as well at this point. Thanks for listening.